In this interview, I had the pleasure of talking with my good friend, Lorin Roche. Lorin is an author, a translator, and has been teaching meditation since 1968. In our discussion, we cover the multidimensional meanings of Sanskrit, Lorin's early years as a renegade meditation teacher in the 60s, the possibilities and the dangers of meditation, the oppressed spiritual genius of women, and why each individual has a unique personal doorway to the meditative state. So without further ado, here is Lorin Roche. Lorin, thanks so much for coming on. It's great to talk with you.
You're welcome. It's good to hang with you, Steve.
For the people listening who might not know who you are, I thought I'd just introduce you a little bit. And if there's anything you want to add to what I'm saying, you can go ahead. Lorin is an author, translator, and meditation teacher since 1968. He has a PhD from the University of California at Irvine, where his research focused on the language meditators use to describe their inner experiences. And his MA was in the hazards of meditation, the management of meditation-induced abreactions, which is something I'd like to ask about a bit later. He's written 7 books, 2 of which he co-authored with his wife Camille. And the latest of these is a translation of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra called The Radiant Sutras, published with Sounds True. He also runs a 200-hour Yoga Alliance certified meditation teacher training based on the Radiant Sutras. Well, I'd like to first of all talk a bit about your translation of the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, of your Radiant Sutras. And I heard it's said often that translation is always necessarily also interpretation, especially with a language like Sanskrit, which I understand is very multifaceted, and with a text like the one you worked with there, which is as much poetic as it is technical. I'm just curious, what is it about Sanskrit that's so unique in that regard? And can you tell us about the process that you went through to arrive at your translations? I know you've told me that story before, and it's quite a process you went through.
Yeah, well, I call what I do a version or a rendition rather than a translation, because in a sense it's sort of a crime to say that you're translating. There's the pretentiousness to it. And yet I love translations. I read them all the time. Sanskrit was engineered to have many dimensions of meaning. On one level, it's music, and it impacts the body immediately on a level of music. And you can almost read the sensations in your body at times and sense the meaning of the Sanskrit. There's an impact. It's also packed with imagery. So a word might have a series of images, and then it's packed with a kind of map of the universe. So one word of Sanskrit, a word such as yoga or the word rasa, it might have a meaning that's cosmic, that pertains to some universal quality, and then something that's very earthy, like a position in sex, or something to do with sex. So, and then something to do with all kinds of craft. For example, the word yoga might have something to do with horses and the whole idea of linking things together. And if you think about it, like to ancient people, like a horse to them was what an airplane and a car and a train and a bicycle is to us. It's just this fantastic means of transportation, but it's a living thing. So it's magic. horses were magic, and the technology of how to saddle a horse was just life transforming. And so there's all these technical skills and fingertip skills having to do with saddling up a horse. And people were revered who were light fingered. That is, they would be holding the reins and they would make the teeniest little invisible movement. And the horse knew exactly what the rider wanted because they're in telepathic rapport. And that's all there in the word yoga. It's when you link things together, it's a relationship. And the idea in yoga is linking together body and soul, your sexuality and your personal power and your heart and your ability to express yourself and your mind and your soul, linking them all together. And what's the relationship? What kind of relationship do you have? Is it one of domination and submission? You know, is it like old school child rearing or way with people with horses where you just beat one continuous beat down? Or is it that magic like of horse whispering where there's people that just walk up to horses and touch them lightly and then jump on and they can ride without even a bridle just by the lightest touch on the mane. So what kind of relationship? And because these words are ancient and the meditation traditions are ancient, there's every kind of relationship is being taught from the creepiest beatdown, domination, submission, as if we imported somebody from the year 200 BC to just lord it over us all, to the most brilliant, the most generous, the most sort of glorious, we're all equally at home in the universe kind of teachings. So the cultures of East and West met long ago, and they've been meeting and inspiring each other for thousands of years. And we're in an advanced stage of the East, the wisdom traditions of the East impacting the Western world. And we're learning to receive. And in what we're receiving is are many, many levels of information. And there are people representing all of those styles. And it's all there in the Sanskrit. So one word will have this multiple dimensions of meaning.
So you're saying that the Sanskrit itself contains the possibility of that kind of disciplining, um, dominant submission sort of approach to yoga or whatever the investigation may be, as well as contains the possibility of those lighter touches.
Well, yeah, the uh-huh. Well, the Bhairava Tantra it is as possible as much as is possible for them to be is sort of generous and egalitarian.
Yeah.
It's saying whoever you are, here's 112 totally different approaches to meditation. Wherever you are, here's a doorway for you. Are you are you lonely? Go ahead and enter that sensation, that current, that longing in your heart. Go deep into that and through it, and you'll find me. You'll find the one lover. Are you out of breath? Well, just take a breath, and inside the rhythm of breathing, you can find the deliciousness, the the spirit of creation? Are you horny? Right there inside of that desire is the movement of the universe. Are you in the middle of an orgasm? Are you missing your lover? Like right there inside that memory of that kiss, that embrace, right there is the movement of the universe. Are you scared? Are you at a feast? Are you ecstatic? Are you exhausted? Are you dancing? Like wherever you are, there's a doorway. So the text itself is incredibly generous. And what I've done is that over the last 50 years since I met the text, I've just been at play with it. It's been inspiring me for half a century now, somehow. And when I first started teaching meditation back in the 60s, I would actually sit with people and just let them talk. Well, tell me about your natural meditative states.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, gardening, or walking the dog, or hiking in nature, and then sitting and looking out over the forests, or fishing, or being standing in the river, fly fishing, or making love, or surfing, or walking at night in the wilderness, just navigating by starlight alone, and then sitting under a tree, kind of scared, listening to the wolves howl, kind of ecstatic, and feeling at home under the stars. I would just listen to people talk and say, what are your natural meditative states? And listen for an hour. Give a person a chance to just really to get into it, to enter that state and tell me about it. And then I would let them browse through the first English translation of the Bhairava Tantra and spot the ones that sound like their native experience. And everyone I've ever talked to already knows something about one of the 112 classic approaches to meditation. They don't usually think of it as meditation.
Mm.
Like a woman that knows how to hold babies and maybe spent an hour at 2 in the morning holding a baby, sitting there herself in a state between waking and sleeping, just gushing love and being in the space of holding. She wouldn't think of that as meditation, but I do.
Mm.
Because when people contact the soul in their own way, whether it's gardening, holding babies, making love, surfing, they glow in a special way. And everybody can see it. You sense the radiance shining from this person, whatever their mode of contact is. They're so glad to be alive. They're in that sense of, oh my God, this is like such a perfect moment. I was born for this. If this was my last moment, it would be okay because it's so perfect. That's the way people feel when they're in their natural meditative state. Like this is,
Mm.
I'm being me. And so I'd let people explore those states. And then towards the end of the session, realize, oh, that's one of the classical meditation techniques. Because it's nice to know. And
Yes.
then and then I would coach them, begin to coach them in how do we develop a daily practice of meditation that feels like you. Because people are so amazingly different. It's stupefying how different people are. And it takes every molecule of attention that the teacher or the coach has to discern individual uniqueness and to discern the way that that particular person already knows something, maybe a lot, about contact with the soul.
That's quite a different access to a lot of the way that meditation is presented as a sort of method or a body of disciplining approaches that is made to rein in and tame a fundamentally unruly mind.
Yeah, well, you just said rain.
Right.
You just used the word rain, which comes from horses. And so that's what I'm talking about. There's the word yoga and the word yama, and there's a word yama that's used in yoga, yama,
Yes.
pranayama, niyama. It means rain. The word yama means reins, a bridle. In that word rain, there's an infinity of relationships.
Yes. From the light touch to
Yeah,
the
from the lightest touch to a prison. And there's many kinds of rains. Like there's a kind of a chord, there's kind of a rain between us and our iPhones. Like
uh-huh.
there's a sensation of walking out of the house without your phone.
Yes. It pulls
Like where
on you.
you
It tugs.
it tugs on you.
Yeah.
So that's a rein,
Yeah.
a bridle. And there's a kind of a connection between us and the lover. If you're making love with somebody or you're adoring somebody, there's a connection between you and them. And after a while, you'll miss them, and it's kind of a tug on your heart. And parents are this way with their kids, and people are this way with their dogs. It's a relationship, and a relationship is it's like infinitely nuanced. One of the things that's going on in meditation a lot is that people by the millions are meditating, and inside themselves they're in a relationship that's just like their relationship with their mother and father and kindergarten teacher, and maybe an abusive lover, a controlling lover. When I interview people who've been meditating for years, and often meditation teachers, when I actually give listen for an hour and ask questions, just keep them talking about what they're actually doing inside. It's exactly like their outer relationships. They're nagging themselves. They're saying, "Why can't you be better?" Their their inner critical voices have adopted Buddhism or Hinduism, some
Yes.
version of it. Why can't you be born attached? Why are you having those desires? Why this? Why that? There's a continuous low level of criticism going on. So that's what they're practicing. This is very common. And because the inner critical voices have now disguised themselves as spiritual teachings, it's basically invisible to the person. And it often
Yes.
takes meditation teachers years to figure out, oh my God, I'm not practicing meditation. I'm practicing being locked in a closet with my mother when she's in a really bad mood. I'm practicing being locked in a closet with my both my parents when they're really disappointed in me.
Yes.
So meditation is an intimate internal relationship. And what's really wild is that most people don't know what they're doing in there because it's invisible. People meditators are as clueless as we all are when we're married or whatever. How did I get here? What am I doing? How did this happen? How did this go south so quickly?
Again.
Again, it's exactly an intimate relationship, and it's but people in general have their eyes closed, and it's decorated with this language.
Something in your bio, it says here, you write the instincts, hunting, exploring, resting, feeding, playing, nesting, bonding, seem to guide the flow of attention during meditation. Paradoxically, the aim of many spiritually oriented meditation techniques is to damage or suppress the instincts. People are often injured in subtle ways by doing the wrong meditation. This goes undiagnosed because the very idea that meditation can be harmful is counterintuitive. And your MA in the hazards of meditation and the management of meditation-induced injury, really, seems to link in here.
Well, yeah, this whole field of knowledge, a sense of how dangerous meditation can be. Like, it's not dangerous like a car crash. It's dangerous like a bad relationship, a bad marriage. Um, it Nobody wants to hear this. It's really funny. What happened was I was teaching through a giant worldwide meditation organization, and it turned into a creepy cult so quickly. Within a couple of years, it turned into this um, just insipid, robotic cult. Everybody was running around quoting the guru, and they say the guru says, and it would always be something just hideous. So I I left. I just stopped teaching for them, and then I was a well-known renegade, just unbeknownst to me.
Apostate.
Yeah, I was surfing, so I wasn't really thinking about it. I had plenty to do, but was famous for being a rebel. So all these people who were having trouble with their practice started coming to me for sessions, and
Yes.
chiropractors and doctors were recommending people to me because at the time in Los Angeles there were tens of thousands of highly experienced meditators and people who just coming back from India, people who were as meditating 4 hours a day and doing exotic practices. So I had this full-time private practice seeing people who would come with these weird problems. Like they would have just come back from India and they just couldn't reintegrate with daily life. Or they, a classic situation would be for the first 2 years I was meditating, I just felt I was getting better and better. And then the next 2 years, I was on a plateau. In the last 2 years, I feel like I'm getting worse and worse. Like,
Yes.
what's going on? So, what I would do in these 2 hour, I was doing 2 hour sessions at the time, was I would just listen and take a full spiritual inventory. And nobody had ever listened to these people. And meditators require that. They deserve it. They deserve it and they need it, and nobody ever gets it. I would just listen for 2 hours and ask little gentle questions like, what happened then? Like, when, what spark in you led you to begin meditating? And then when was that first moment when you started to feel like this isn't working anymore? And then, and then let them talk for half an hour or something. And then, well, were you pushing away your own instinct? Like, what happened in the struggle between your inner sense, this isn't working, and then your belief in the guru or your belief in the technique? Tell me about that internal struggle. And then, what did it take for you to get you to come here? Like, what fears did you have, or what hope did you have? And I would just ask leading questions and listen and listen and listen. And every pretty much every person said, "Oh my God, no meditation teacher has ever listened to me before. I've just been practicing for thousands of hours. So what's really it's just some random technique, and I didn't know what was going on. And my teacher, who just has a warehouse full of people that he has no idea of, he had no idea what was going on with me and didn't want to know. So I did this for years, and it was astounding because I had had no idea that other meditation teachers were stuck in that way. It was the first time that I had done in-depth work like that with other meditation teachers and people like me who'd been meditating for their entire adult lives. I mean, I was 25. My adult life was 5 years. So I've been meditating for 7 years since I was a teenager. But that was my. Go ahead, Steve.
So this was the early 70s then, early mid 70s.
Mid 70s. Yeah.
You've just come out of this organization. I don't know if you want to mention whatever the
No,
organization
it's
is.
no, it's a creepy cult. It's better not to mention.
Okay. This dialogue approach that you're talking about, this listening and drawing out, it's not part. It's not part of that previous approach that you've been steeped in, is it? So where did
No,
you get that? Where did that come from? The idea to actually listen. It sort of seems straightforward when you say it, but as you say, it's not exactly the most common approach.
it's not. It was completely coincidental when I started meditating sort of by accident, so to speak, in a science lab at the University of California.
Huh.
And I was a control subject, so they just put me in a dark room and left me there for hours in pitch black, total silence, wired up to a brainwave machine. And as it turns out, I went into meditation spontaneously. I had no instructions, and in 1968, people weren't talking about meditation very much.
Right.
So I don't think I'd ever heard the word meditation, or at least I had never noticed it. I think it was there, but I hadn't even given it a thought. So I wound up working in this science lab that was doing research on meditation. And then I wound up doing interviews with people about their experiences as part of different research projects. So I
Oh, I
was
see.
trained to listen as part of the scientific research.
Mm.
And that's what tipped me off to this thing of listening, to the joy of listening. And if you don't know how to listen to people talk about their favorite experiences, consider learning. It's amazing. Pretty
Mm.
much any human being, you can ask them, tell me about like the greatest experience you've ever had. Tell me about the most relaxed you've ever felt. Tell me about the most thrilled you've ever been to be alive. And if you really genuinely can listen, people will go on and on and on, and they'll tell you their secrets. So anyway, as part of the scientific research, I had gotten tipped off to this. And so it just seemed natural with these people that were coming to me. Also, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
These people were coming to me with faith, in good faith,
Yeah.
and these doctors and chiropractors and nutritionists were sending these people to me in faith. And so it's like I had no idea what to do. Here I was 25, and basically I had just been teaching meditation for 5 years. Um, and that was my level of skill. That's all I knew. And here's somebody, maybe a 30 or 40-year-old person who'd been meditating as long as me, with at that time I'd been meditating for 7 years,
Mm.
and I had been on advanced courses, so I had maybe spent a year of that time or more meditating all day, every day, doing yoga and meditating.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like one triathlete meeting another triathlete.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about, sort of fanatic level of intensive practice. So I would just listen because I had no clue. Like, holy shit, here's this person. They're in trouble. And they've come to me after thinking about it for God knows how long. They went to this chiropractor, they went to a doctor. No one has a clue. But the people who referred this person to me had a hunch that they're
Mm-hmm.
doing the wrong kind of meditation. When I
Mm-hmm.
would when I would talk to these chiropractors and naturopaths and acupuncturists and doctors who were referring people to me, they'd be going, "Well, this guy's got some, like, he can't digest anything, but I have a feeling he's doing the wrong meditation." And also, when I talk to him about diet, say, "Dude, you need to start eating meat or whatever." It's like talking to a religious fanatic. Their head
Yep.
is so full of yoga jargon that they can't hear a word that I'm saying.
Mm.
And I don't have time to sit and deconstruct their this weird map of the world that they've built. So I had to invent it from scratch out of necessity. And there's that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
So here's all these people, and everyone was completely different. They were practicing something with total sincerity, and it wasn't working. And so over the years, I built up a map of what they were doing wrong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in a simple, like, there was this woman who was meditating, and she had read Herbert Benson's book, and he had said just use a random mantra. And so she picked the word down because she was thinking of like a down jacket,
Oh yeah.
but she was getting depressed from that.
Right.
And so I said, "Oh, well, pick a new mantra for yourself." That was all it was. She was feeling down. That
Yeah.
was just her brain, her body interpreted down as going down, and she was just feeling depressed from meditation. Um, Another woman had been meditating a perfect amount of time for her body, which is about 20 minutes.
Mm.
And her father was a Zen practitioner. Her father and mother were both hardcore Zen people. This young woman was 20, and for her body, a little bit less than 20 minutes was a profound meditation. Also, she's very fast, like to get. So she was talking with her father. She said, "Oh, I've been meditating." And he goes, "Well, oh yeah, how long do you meditate?" She goes, "20 minutes."
Right.
He goes, "That's nothing." He says,
Exactly. Yeah.
"It doesn't even count unless you meditate for 45 minutes." So
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
started meditating for 45 minutes, which made her feel completely stoned. And she walked around. She said she walks around all day as if she had a glass of wine and some marijuana, just feeling loopy. But
Mm-hmm.
if she doesn't meditate, she felt jangly and like she's missing out. And all she needed to do was meditate for 20 minutes. She
Mm.
let an external authority override her natural instinct for how to meditate.
And that's the key, is it, to what you're saying? There's somehow this trust in the relationship that's available to the individual meditator. Because let me ask you this, I've heard you say in conversation with me before, we've chatted, and you've said, this is a approximation. You've said something along the lines of, you're a coach, and you have you don't have a problem with people coming to you who are more advanced meditators, whatever that might mean, than you. You don't seem to see that as a
Yeah.
problem. You don't feel you need to be sort of more advanced. And that does fly in the face of a lot of the more, I don't know if we should say traditional or common or widespread models, where the teacher is the master, who's permanently above his students in terms of attainment, knowledge, and rank. And he has the trump card often of lineage to further cement that sort of position. And it seems to me that your open, if I might say, happy ignorance in terms of, well, I don't know necessarily what to do. I don't have the answer here. That kind of thing produced this creative approach that seemed to get into places where the more formal, lineage-based, sort of top-down models didn't seem to have access. What do you think about lineage? These ideas, such as in the Tibetan model, it's very emphasized, institutions and things of that sort. Just to throw a bit of a curveball in there.
Well, to each their own. Like
Uh-huh.
certain people, some people like to be in a domination submission relationship. It's comforting,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and it's an individual difference. And there's, I love the Tibetans, and my model is more of a wide open inquiry.
Mm.
And I would suggest that it's actually part of the lineage is this open discussion and exploration. There are all these tools that we've inherited from at least 2,500 years of exploration from the monastic traditions.
Mm.
And now we're in a very different world. Most of the practitioners in the Western world are females.
Mm-hmm.
They're women. And the ones I know are brilliant, sincere, hardworking, multitasking. It's like every woman has 8 arms, and they like to use them all every day.
Yes.
And I think they're way ahead of us in many ways. And also, I don't think that meditation teachers are necessarily very good meditators. They just like being in that position, or they just randomly wound up in that position. It's teaching in any field is its own skill. Like the tennis coach is not necessarily the best tennis player,
Mm-hmm.
and the voice coach, like all the people that you hear singing on the radio or podcast, however you get music, they all have voice coaches that you've never heard of.
Right.
And what's great about the coaching model is that the coach wants their students to thrive and doesn't need to be worshipped, doesn't need people bowing down to them. The coach wants their students to thrive. Like all the actors that we see in movies and TV, they all have or had acting coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And the coaches are thrilled that their students are out there thriving. So this model, the old model, that the guru is someone that you worship, it's all glory to the guru. That's that's a facet. That's one small part of the meditation traditions. It's like the public face, but it's really only a tiny part. In a way, the that aspect, what you were mentioning, the authoritarian structure, in a
Mm-hmm.
way, it's like the supporting beams. If we look at a building and there's these support pillars, there's posts and pillars that support the weight.
Mm.
In a sense, the authoritarian structure is like the posts, that are holding the roof up. It's the space, the open space that's inside the classroom or the lecture hall. That's where things happen. The rigid structure provides a framework and keeps the rain or hail or snow off or the sun. It protects everybody.
Right.
But it's not where the electricity is happening. It's not where the teaching is happening. So the the rigidity of the master slave relationship or master disciple, and that's that serves to preserve the structure of the teaching, like pillars in a roof, and like the cement or the stone of the foundation. It's something that you walk on. The actual teaching takes place in the emptiness. The what a room is, what a lecture hall is, or a meditation hall is, it's an empty space, and therefore people can come in and be there. So there's a relationship of formal structure and informality, and the informality has not been emphasized. The formality has been emphasized almost exclusively, but the free inquiry is not. Like and in fact, every single item, every thought, every image, every mantra, every technique, every value in the meditation traditions needs to be completely questioned and run through at first. The first filter is this appropriate for modern women? Because there's almost none of the teachers in the past were female. There's almost no sense of what does a female body need. So one of the first filter is this appropriate for the majority of our students who are women? Then is it appropriate for non-Hindu or non-Buddhist women? Is it appropriate for women who have families or want to have families? Is it appropriate for women who have jobs, who are on the path of intimacy as opposed to the path of renunciation? And so there's a series. Is it appropriate for men who love women as opposed to men who aspire to be monastic? So there's a series of filters, and we need to reevaluate every single thought particle that we've received from the ancient traditions in light of all this, because meditation is important. All these techniques, all of them, are ways of accessing our internal resources, and therefore they belong to everyone. Meditation is a built-in human instinct that everyone has access to. It's the most natural thing in the world. When people discover their own style of meditation, it's more natural than sitting on the sofa listening to your favorite music. It's the most natural thing in the world. It's such a breath of fresh air. It's such a sigh of relief. And we need we need people to have access to this inner peace so that when they walk around in the outer world, they spread that peace. The world needs that. We need people to have access to enlightenment, to their own natural enlightenment. We don't need more people to be enslaved by an ancient tradition of meditation that corrals people and keeps them suppressed and mildly repressed, but doesn't let them shine forth with enlightenment. That's being done. We don't need
Well,
more of
let me
it.
let me play devil's advocate. Shouldn't these women who want to have jobs and families and so on, shouldn't they, get with the program and become properly spiritual and, renounce all of those things, isn't it them that's the problem, and the traditions are really the path to the higher transcendence and so on?
Well, that is the point of view of quite a few males that are in the
Mm.
traditions, is that all of us are a lesser form of life, but
Yeah.
we're needed because we're a source for them to be in the real estate business. The money that we provide lets them accumulate real estate holdings in temples, and
Hmm.
they need us. But we're like we're breeders.
Uh-huh.
It's a source of raw material. There's a natural contempt, like
Mm.
there's a dog and cat thing.
Yeah.
The contempt that a cat has for a dog and for everybody else. There's a kind of a contempt that renunciates have for the rest of us, a superiority.
Where do you think that content comes from,
Well,
if you had to guess?
there's a lot of reasons why people might renounce the world,
Yeah.
but in general, to take vows of celibacy and poverty and obedience, which are the basic vows of a monk, you
Mm.
cut yourself off from everyday life. And so feeling superior is kind of a side effect of that, and it's a protection against depression.
Mm.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous to not be feel superior, because then you risk depression and a sense of meaninglessness. So when people are arrogant or secretly superior, like I'm closer to God than you are, I'm more spiritual
Yeah.
than you are, it's you don't know what they're protecting themselves from.
Yeah. I see. So this is, you're saying, you're implying renunciation can be a kind of carapace against something that one might protect oneself from.
We don't know. Like I've talked in some depth with Tibetans who fled Tibet, and the grief
Mm.
they felt over losing their country and their friends, the grief over losing their friends, the
Yes.
people, their whole community being tortured to death, that they've escaped, their survivor guilt, the what the hell am I doing here guilt.
Yeah.
If they run around the West teaching whatever they teach, they've these people have problems,
Yeah.
and they're just trying to get through the day. Like what they know how to do or what they're expected to do is teach Tibetan Buddhism. And like everybody's in trouble. The Dalai Lama is so great because he talks about this.
Mm.
He's like the honest meditation teacher. He's so wonderful the way he talks about that.
Mm.
Um, but everybody's in trouble. All these people are just people trying to get through the day, and their day job might be pretending to be enlightened.
Even tulkus have problems, do they?
Totally, totally. All these people late at night freak out.
Hmm.
After midnight or 2 in the morning, they're all freaking out, just like anybody. Like, what am I doing? What's Buddha think of me?
Mm.
Um, so there are problems to people that are denigratingly called householders. Oh, I call them the path of intimacy. But there's something fundamentally wrong with people who are in the path of love, who have a job and a lover, studying with somebody who's a monk or a nun. It's a basic mismatch, and there's gonna be problems.
Right. What sort of problems? What are the sort of signs that you've noticed over the years of that sort of a mismatch of a person who isn't doesn't know that there's this natural access to meditation that you're talking about, that they have a portal available to them, let's say, to
Well, it's
this
just
this
basically
intimacy.
undermining.
Hmm.
It weakens monastic or nun teachings. They weaken the ego. They believe in weakening the ego. And if you're really spiritual, you'll renounce it all and join an ashram or a nunnery.
Can you give an example of one of those sorts of approaches?
Ask me something more specific.
Well, what would be an ego weakening renunciation direction kind of practice that would be commonly practiced by people who aren't in that direction, and they'd often find themselves in a mismatch there.
Oh, well, in meditation, we witness the flow of thought and desire. So if you're a nun or a monk and you're witnessing the flow of desire, you just to keep your sanity, you have to learn to deny or dissolve the desires rather than act on them. If
Mm.
you're a monk and you've taken a vow of celibacy and you're sitting there and you feel horny, you have to do something with that sexual energy. You
Right.
have to dissolve it or deny it or send it somewhere else or convert it. And the best monks will do alchemy with it. They'll convert that sexual desire into a liveliness of presence. It's a high skill. But you don't live it out. You've taken a vow to not live out your desires. Whereas if you're on the path of intimacy, you you need to cherish your desires and practice, in a sense, the opposite skill, live out your desires where possible. Because it's a lot of work to live out any desire, and it's an entirely different game. If you are free, if you have freedom and you have a job and you have a lover or friends, and say you have a desire like I want to go to Nepal, or I want to go on vacation in Hawaii, or I want to go on a trek, or I want to go to Bali, or I want to go to New York, or I want to go to London. It takes so much work to line all your ducks up in a row to go to London, or if you're in London, to go to LA. It's so much work. You have to save money, you have to clear your schedule, you have to get a visa, you have to
Right.
buy a ticket, you have to coordinate with your friends. Are they going to be there? Can they come? Are they going to be there? You have to go on Airbnb. You have to find a place to stay or stay with your friend. You have to rent a car. You have to remind yourself to drive on the correct side of the road, depending on which country you're in. You have to have insurance. There is so much work involved in fulfilling any desire. And that's the game for people who are on the path of intimacy. It's getting together with your friends and fulfilling desires together.
Mm.
It's a whole different way of living than being a renunciate. And for people who are on the path of intimacy to be around renunciates is undermining because it's very dangerous and damaging to young people to internalize a suspicious attitude toward their own ego and to internalize the monk style of spiritual language, like a passivity and kind of a suspicious take on your own desire nature.
Mm.
Young people need to be out there going for it, starting businesses, having relationships, trying things, failing, dancing, getting going to Burning Man or whatever. Need to be out there living and learning from experience and not turning away from experience because it doesn't seem spiritual.
Mm.
You want to go for it. So for people on the path of love, you meditate and then go for it. You simmer with desire when you meditate. You celebrate every desire. You celebrate every impulse to jump up out of meditation and go dancing or go start a business or go grab your friend and say, let's go surfing or let's go rollerblading or let's go skateboarding or let's go check out this new club or let's go check out this new restaurant or let's go see this movie or let's go to work or let's go to coffee. You meditate as a way of energizing and centering yourself and then go and live. So it's a completely different philosophy.
What about, to play devil's advocate once again, what about this suspicion that somehow going with this desire, these impulses will lead to some sort of ruinous end? That really we ought to corral these wild, sinful impulses.
You just used another horse. You used another horse metaphor. Corral.
Yeah.
Well, meditation is a corral. That's what you're doing. When you meditate, you're not acting out. This is the time to get to know all your desires, all your wildness, all your rebellion, all of your passion. Meditation is the time to feel everything and let it roar. That's your time to really get to know what's happening inside and celebrate get to know all the inner people, all those impulses. Let them roar and flow freely because you're sitting there on your sofa. That's what meditation is for. It's a safe space to feel everything and let your chakras talk to each other. Let your every part of your body talk to every other part of your body. That's what it's for. After meditation, then you're full of yourself. You There's just a hum of electricity, and then you do your regular life.
Yeah.
I don't find I spent the last 50 years in lengthy conversations with meditators of every kind and just regular people wanting to meditate. And people are not running amok. They're not. It's they feel their desires and then it's like having had a massage or gone for a long run. You just Then you just go and do your daily life with an extra bit of pizzazz. What meditation gives, when people feel their wildness and let all the chakras just spin and vibrate and hum and connect with each other, what people do is they just go and love and work and play and laugh. The the dangerous part, the running amok, that comes primarily from repression, not from expression.
I see. And that's what I love about the way you talk about meditation is this tremendously counterculture, life affirming. By counterculture, I mean counter the cultures we've been discussing, of this sort of authoritarian style, life affirming emphasis. It's such a spanner in the works.
Yeah, I have a hunch at this text, the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, that it comes from a householder tradition. It comes from this little time and space when women and men were practicing together, and women were cherished as the spiritual geniuses that they are. In in this tradition, there's a saying that women can accomplish in a week what it takes a man a year to do in terms of realization. And I've seen this my whole life, that women will just step into their enlightenment. It's, and in a way, it takes a man a year. Um,
Let me ask you about that,
yeah,
Lorin, because there are ideas that to put it somewhat archaically, that women are a lower birth than men. And there are some traditions that say women can't be enlightened because they're women, and the best they can hope for is to sort of be reborn as a man, and maybe they'll have the chance then.
Absolutely.
And even in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, Devi is asking Bhairava, or Shakti, or Shiva's wife is asking Shiva for that meditative instruction as he sort of sits there and does all that sort of thing. So you seem to be saying, and you said it earlier, that women are cherished as I think you said spiritual geniuses. So how does that get reconciled there with these other views?
Well, like I said, we're in the process of interacting with the ancient traditions,
Hmm.
and so every thought that has ever been thunk is represented in the traditions. In other words, they made
Uh-huh.
records. We have access to how people thought. And so
Yes.
there's actually tens of thousands of different techniques, tens of thousands. And there's tens of thousands of different superstitions. And superstition means something left over. I
Yeah.
forget the exact etymology, but superstitia, it's something left over from the past. So in the past systems, for whatever reason, there was this war between the sexes, and the men temporarily had control. So their idea was that women are such a lesser birth that it would take hundreds of lifetimes of being submissive and serving a guru, being a slave to a guru, for hundreds of lifetimes, and then you could earn being born as a man. I mean, it's a system of oppression. And meditators who are open to Tibetan Buddhism or the ancient teachings of India wind up being open to these ancient superstitions, these
Uh,
oppressive beliefs. And each of us has to develop an immune response. It's like learning to drink the water in a third world country. You, we each have to develop some kind of an immune system to protect us from these pathogens and parasites that will take over. When that's the trouble with studying in an ancient tradition is that the mind parasites that are in that tradition will try to find a way into your bloodstream or your brain and inhabit you and take you over.
and what is the vaccine for that? How
That
can
is a
one
good
engage
question.
with these traditions and have some sense of that?
It's the right, giving yourself the right to talk back to the traditions,
Hmm.
giving yourself the right to ask what's appropriate for me now, giving yourself the right to ignore 99.999% of the tradition and say no to it, giving yourself the right to pick and choose, giving yourself the right to construct a system that lets you thrive in your daily life. We need meditation is important, and it can produce astounding results in terms of people feeling lit up and empowered and living their daily life, whether it's just raising kids, teaching kindergarten, being a massage therapist, being a therapist, being a professor, being a surfer, being an actor, being a politician. Meditation can produce stunning results in terms of lighting people up and letting them radiate that light into the world. And it's important. But meditation, because it's ancient and because there's tens of thousands of techniques, can also be like drugs, where people will take a drug and it temporarily frees them from pain, but then they're addicted to that painkiller. There's
Yes.
a level where meditation is like a mild drug, which unbalances your body chemistry.
I feel like we could talk about these things for many, many hours.
Yeah, we could. It's like we're just getting started.
I feel that way, yeah. But I'm sure you have to go.
Well, what I would say to anybody is know that there's over 100 different gateways into meditation. Like that's the short form is about a
Hmm.
hundred. And there's eating and there's dancing and there's wandering in nature and there's looking at the stars and there's sex and there's thinking about sex and there's breathing and there's listening to music and innumerable forms of that. And there's all of the classical meditation practices. All of these practices are ways, in a sense, of making love with the life force, with this mysterious dynamic of energy that's always flowing through us.
Yes.
And you, whoever you are, you have as much right to this life force as anybody alive and anybody that ever has lived. Find what works for you, explore, and build your practice out of what makes you thrive.
That's wonderful. Lorin, where can people find out more about you? Where can they contact you? I know you have your 200-hour Yoga Alliance certified meditation course based from this perspective on the Radiant Sutras. Whereabouts on the internet can people find you and get in touch?
There's lorinroche.com. Apparently, I'm the only Lorin Roche in the world. So if you just type Lorin Roche, you'll find me. And there's radiancesutras.com if you want to go in through the book. And there's meditationtt.com. But go in through any portal and start exploring and build your own approach to meditation. And if you want coaching, I'm here and I have students around the world who can help you out. Some people can learn from books. Some people can learn from listening, from audiobooks. Some people thrive just on personal coaching. So all this information is available for free. Just get one of my books from a library. Or you can listen online to lots of stuff. Or you can spend money for high quality education. It's worth it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lorin. Those links will all be in the description underneath this audio for anyone who wants to find out more about Lorin, perhaps work with him. Certainly everyone should get a copy of the Radiant Sutras from Sounds True. Really wonderful rendering of that text. And thank you so much, Lorin, for joining me.
Thank you, Steve. What a pleasure.